Hello, my name is Anthony Andrews, co-founder of S.O.U.L Fest 2020, and it is my great pleasure to welcome you to a very special Q&A of Rocks, featuring the two lead actors, Bukky, Bakray and Kosar, the writer Theresa Ikoko, and associate director Anu Henriques. Thank you all so much for joining us here. And I feel doubly lucky because not only am I speaking to four incredibly creative and talented women, but I'm also very lucky to have seen the film before a lot of people. So I feel very fortunate. It's an incredible piece of work. And Theresa, if I can start with you as the co-writer on Rocks, I wanted to find out how you came up with the idea for the film and how the story came to be.
Yeah, sure. I had been working on the idea for Rocks as a separate project. I had wanted to write something for my big sister, just like as a thank you and an acknowledgement of all the amazing things that she is. And when we were working on Rocks, before it was Rocks, we had been together for a year and we sort of knew we wanted to do something that honoured the process of being a girl, being a particularly black and brown girl in London. And what we had created was this sisterhood. And when I met Bukky, who reminded me so much of my sister, it just felt like this thing that I'd been working on fit well into what we had established. Everybody just poured so much love into it, and it just sort of grew into something a lot more meaningful and a lot more precious and a lot more reflective of, I think, of an experience that I didn't realize I shared with so many people.
You definitely feel the hard work and dedication on the screen. It feels so energetic and so natural in its approach, and that's something I really appreciated watching it. So Bukky and Kosar, I really wanted to talk a little bit about, I guess, how you guys were attached to the project. I mean, if we start with you, Bukky, playing Rocks, like what was the process auditioning for the role?
Sarah and Lucy Pardy, the casting director, they started going to schools across London. After 6 months observing the lack of our performing arts classes, we were invited to some auditions, and me and my friends were like, yeah, let's go to these auditions. It's going to be cool. So after, I would say, how long was the audition process for? So like
about 4 months, 5, something like that, yeah.
And like the audition process was done in a really unorthodox way. So we wasn't given a script to learn. We didn't have anything to recite. It was more so just us doing workshops with other young people and doing different activities with people like Dion Reed and just a range of like a lot of different Black creatives in London. And it didn't really feel like auditioning until the very end when I actually established a relationship with Theresa and Claire and Sarah and Kosar. And I felt like this is something that I could get. That's when it became more real.
And was that a similar experience for you, Kosar, in terms of that process and how that was for you?
Yeah, it was similar. It started off as workshops, kind of collaborating with other women, kind of having fun. I mean, we were like 13 in it, so I didn't know what audition was. Like, I was just playing around with other girls, and I met Bukky, and she became like my sister. So yeah, I was just kind of having fun. But then towards the end, it started to feel a bit more serious because at first it was kind of like a big group of girls, and it kind of started getting smaller and smaller. And then it was like, oh, okay, this is getting kind of, kind of real. Like, okay, we're doing a film.
Really cool. That's really cool. And Anu, just to bring you in, I just wanted to find out what really attracted you to this project.
I think for me, I hadn't known many stories that centered Black and brown young women from London that was told in a incredibly joyful and truthful way. And then I think when I first came onto the project, when I met Sarah and Theresa and Claire and the young women who are at the center of it, it became very obvious that it had to be by its nature built in a very different way from what other kind of maybe more traditional film processes are like. Like Theresa had this beautiful story that was this love letter to her own sister, but then offered it and shared it with these young women and with us as a team. It was done in such a generous way that meant that we were all able to offer our own stories and our own love letters to the women in our lives. And I think the time where we were sitting in workshops and pulling the story apart and putting it back together was something I hadn't ever witnessed before. And the experiences and perspectives that we all brought were very different, but brought something that was really special to the project. And so I think for me, that's what made it an important process and a really important learning point, I think, for me as a filmmaker going forward.
I really want to talk about that environment. And Theresa, how was that experience for you as a writer, sort of having your vision shared and, with so many people, and then potentially, someone not agreeing with a particular part that you feel really strongly about? I'm really interested in how that dynamic works.
I mean, I just think it was just really easy. At this point, we had known each other for, I'd say, maybe a year. And when somebody bought something, there was always so much space for everybody's stories. Affy particularly had a story for everything. So what we initially did was we put up the story beats across the wall of the room we were working in. And, you can say anything and Affy will tell you a funny story that had to do with a witch doctor fighting McDonald's and a dance-off in Finsbury Park Station. And that's just the kind of story she had for everything. And even if the full 20-minute scene she described didn't make it into the film, the energy of that scene would. So it wasn't necessarily people's words. I think what we captured was people's spirits, people's energies, people's gifts. We just couldn't really get enough of what each other had to offer. And I think we have, as a community, as a people, been starved of each other's and our stories. So actually that writer's room for us, I think, was food for the soul. It's like, tell me more, because I don't get to see it. I don't get to hear it outside of these moments. So I really looked forward to any opportunity we could to share each other's stories in the script and on screen. I think we were really privileged and grateful to have that. Yeah, it was easy. I don't know. Maybe it wasn't easy for you guys. It was easy. I feel like it was easy.
Well, yeah, we had that foundation of the story from Theresa, and so I think that gave us this feeling of safety that we were working from. This is the first time I'd worked in a group that was almost totally women, and even when we were on set, it was 75% women as well. And so I think it created an environment where everyone was respected as a storyteller. And I think that's also different to other environments. There's usually quite a lot of hierarchies in writers' rooms, and in some projects that it serves the project well. But I think for us, it was important to make everyone feel like their voices were as important as everyone else's. And I don't think that we could have developed the relationships and the trust if we didn't have an extensive period of time just hanging out with each other before we started anything kind of practical. So that was also a blessing, I think.
Yes, definitely. And Bukky and Kosar, can you talk to us a little bit about, I guess, that collaborative process as well? Because one thing that I read, Kosar, you spoke to Sarah Gavron about a scene that wasn't working. And as a result, Sarah actually reshot the scene. Can you talk about that experience?
Yeah, like Theresa said, it was such a safe space that if there was something we wasn't comfortable with or didn't agree with, I could have felt to say, yeah, that didn't feel right. Because from the get-go, from the beginning, anything that you said wouldn't be a silly idea, or any way that you felt wouldn't be dismissed. So yeah, when we were filming that scene, it just kind of didn't feel right to me. So I said to Sarah, sis, I feel like we could, do better. And she literally just said, oh, really? But she fixed it like that. So yeah, I feel like that's the sisterhood between us. It wasn't really a workspace. It was more like family.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that so much, the fact that everyone listened to each other, and to not just listen, but to actually hear what I'm saying, to take it in, to really palate it and just consider that idea. I'm used to being in spaces where stuff that I feed into the room is completely disregarded for many reasons. So to be in a space where people are taking in your ideas and they're excited by your ideas, it can really make you feel good about yourself. And I feel like the writer's room was so profound for me, because that's when I felt like the whole Rocks process it began to feel like it was close to me. My ideas were now a part of Rocks. So therefore Rocks was a part of me. And that's where I felt amazing. I really want to be a part of this now.
Yes, definitely. Thank you for that. And if I could stay with Bukky and Kosar for a second, I'm quite interested about some of the more challenging scenes in Rocks, because as you've mentioned, the film is completely full of joy, full of friendship, and seeing that side of happiness. But on the other hand, there are some really challenging themes that arise from this film. And Bukky, without giving too much away, your character goes on quite a journey in terms of dealing with those sort of more challenging scenes. How did you approach those, and how was that for you as a young actor?
I feel like acting is real life in imaginary circumstances. So I feel like every young Black girl in London can identify with Rocks and Sanaya in some way. So me diving into the character of Rocks, it was me just confronting myself in a way. Because we're in such a safe space, it wasn't as difficult as it could have been. Because Rocks did go through a lot emotional things and trying to get yourself in that place, it is difficult. But it came to a point where me doing this, it wasn't only for me, it was for other Black girls. I know looking at Rocks on screen, if my younger self saw that, I would be a different person today.
Talking about representation of Black women, Kosar representing Samaya as, just a girl who's a very loyal friend and showing, the wider Somali community and the family together. How important was that for you to make sure that part of your culture was really celebrated in that way?
Growing up, I never really watched shows or films and saw myself on screen. I never really saw my culture or someone who kind of looked like me. So to do something where I could show my culture at its truest form and to the best that I could show it in its truest form, it was such an honor, because like other young Somali girls, other young Muslim girls are gonna watch that and realize, you know what, I could do this. I could go in this game and actually be myself. I don't have to conform to other people's ideas. I've had conversations with cousins and multiple family members, and there always comes up that question of, how did you do it while wearing your turban? How did you do it while wearing your abaya in the scene in Rocks? And it's I just did it because I was true to myself.
Anu, I wanted to come to you next about the importance of not only representation and diversity on screen, but also behind the camera.
Yeah, I feel like it was from the very beginning a priority to make sure that the talent on screen was reflected behind the camera as well. So there was a lot of work done to make sure the heads of department and stuff were majority women. Like I said, it was 75%, 80% female. But then they were also from backgrounds and shared experiences of some of the cast and of some of the other crew. We wanted for when Bukky and Kosar were on set, for example, for it not to just be I can be an actor, but also so you could be I could be a DOP, or in Theresa's case, I could be a grip because she's obsessed with grips, or I could be a producer or a costume designer. It challenged what a normal kind of film crew would look like. And I think also for some of the HODs, it was their first time stepping up into that kind of role, crewing up their own teams as well. It's not the go-to setup. And I think there is always going to be more work that needs to be done to make sure that systems are in place that allow women like us or people like us to be able to step into leadership roles, because there's so much more possible than what we are told is possible in this industry. You can bring down hierarchies, you can really challenge who gets to be in spaces, whose voices are at the center.
Trying to explain to festivals or to media or to whoever that, this isn't a Sarah Gavron film. This is a film that is shared ownership, shared authorship. Trying to have those conversations and to reframe people's ideas of whose stories belong to and why stories can't inherently, especially stories about communities that we saw in Rocks, how they can't inherently belong to one person, and particularly not a white lady. And Sarah was a huge voice in that conversation, and she would say all the time, stop it, this isn't my story. And I found it surprising that conversation had to be repeated over and over again.
When it was shown at London Film Festival, what was that experience like watching the film with other people?
I turned around to Anu, because I sat next to Anu during that, and I was like, Anu, I think the film was good. And at this point, we'd seen it 17 times, and Anu was convinced it's the top 3 films in the history of the world. And it was duh, I've been saying everybody from Hackney was there for me. All my massive family was there, and I just felt like I could hear my friends laughing at particular jokes that were there for them. It just felt really special that they get those moments of this is just for me. You don't know, you don't get this joke, you don't know what this means.
Bukky, what was that experience like for you at London Film Festival?
We were insecure about our performances. The first time we watched it at the cast and crew screening, it was you people are lying, it's not good. But going to LFF and going to Toronto Film Festival and just seeing people's reactions, I was just Kosar. It's very difficult to articulate because I've never felt like that before.
Yeah, it was so crazy. I feel we're our biggest critics. So when you watch yourself on screen, you're kind of oh, why did I do that? Or, oh, why did I smile like that? You're just too busy looking at how you did this and this that we didn't really see like the whole film as one. But when we went to London Film Festival, especially watching like an audience and their reaction, and it's London, like it's where we filmed it.
Yeah.
They understand the banter, they understand the scenery. So it's like when they were taking it in and they were laughing at some jokes, it was like books, like we actually made a film that people like. So honestly, can't even explain it in words, but the feeling was just amazing.
Theresa knows that, like, literally from screening number 1 until screening like 117, that I like, honestly, I belly laugh at every single moment, and that joy hasn't seemed to like diminish over time, no matter how much I watch it. And so I think for me, that indicates that this is something beyond all of us as individuals. This is something really special. And so when Theresa turned to me in that moment, it was almost like that kind of like vindication of all those thoughts that had been going for the years we've been watching it. It felt like it was right, and we had done it, and we had done it really, really good. But also like beyond like LFF, I remember when we like went to different film festivals where we were in Toronto, and that had an amazing reaction to it as well. And then we went to some other festivals in Europe, and I remember thinking that like, oh, I wonder if they're going to laugh at it in the same way as someone who gets the jokes, who gets the kind of the language, everything from London. But they all barely laughed as well. So there's obviously stuff that transcends like our experiences. We find funny, and then they find themselves in it. And we had a lot of young people who I would never have expected to connect with it, who really, really connected with it. And old people who really connected with it as well. So I think, yeah, I will back it till the day I die, and it is a very film.
Well, I can only reinforce what you said. I'm really looking forward to watching it again. But I wanted to find out from each one of you, what's next? What can we look forward to seeing you guys or having you guys be a part of next?
World domination.
We could just end it right there. That's perfect. That's a great answer.
Like it may be world domination, and also lots of special projects on the way to world domination that we like collaborate with each other again on. Mm-hmm. Like so many of the crew and everyone that we worked with we have maintained relationships and maintained like sharing ideas and thoughts, and I think there's going to be lots of things.
Okay. Bukky and Kosar, what advice would you give to young actors who are potentially looking for, a project to work on, having gone through the experience you had of making this film?
A lot of people coming from my background, entering this world, it can feel like a culture shock. It took me a really long time to do certain scenes because I felt embarrassed. I felt like the people looking at me were thinking like, what the hell is Bukky doing? Like, what the hell are you doing? And I still have that feeling today when I'm doing self-tapes. Like when I'm in my room by myself, I still feel embarrassed about what I'm doing. I still feel like I'm just doing everything incorrectly. But I feel like when you eradicate that feeling of embarrassment, that feeling of just looking for validation from other people, that's what's really going to drive you. And that's going to make you stay an individual. But yeah, and just like realize it's a learning process. Like I don't feel like I'm ever going to stop learning. I'm still looking for advice.
Most definitely. Thank you. And Kosar, if I could ask you the same question, what advice would you give?
Like Bukky said, still looking for advice. But I believe that we are like our biggest enemies, like I said before, and sometimes you can have so much like you hold yourself back because of all the thoughts in your head. So as a young actor, I would just say go for it. Like if you want to do something, do it. Don't hold yourself back, and be true to yourself, because comparison is the thief of joy. That's what Dion Reid taught me, because for a long time I always used to compare myself to others and kind of lose myself in the process. So I feel like you need to just be true to yourself.
I thought you said you guys didn't have advice. That was amazing. Thank you so much. That was brilliant. Just a final question before I let you guys go. What would you want audiences to take away from Rocks?
So many things. I think one of the main things, something like Theresa has taught me from the very beginning, is to center joy in all the stories that we tell. And there will be like darker elements and challenging moments, but to always like recenter yourself in joy and like revisit that every time you feel you're drifting away from it.
Thank you very much. Theresa, if I can come to you next.
I've been a Marvel fan my whole life. And then I went to see Black Panther when it came out with my friends. And I cried like so much. And I didn't cry at the sad bits. I cried at those moments where the camera swept across Wakanda, and when I recognized the South African languages, when I recognized the African print, and I was like, I'm crying tears of joy because this is the first time Marvel has loved me back. And I hope that people who have not been loved back by screens and stories in this part of the world will go and watch Rocks, and wherever they are in the world, when they see Rocks, and I hope they would just feel loved back and feel valid and seen and important.
Thank you. Kosar, if I can come to you.
I don't know how I can beat that, because it's literally a summary of everything that I was going to say. So just enjoy the film, man. It's a great film. Like, I hope when people come out that they love it and just feel it from the bottom of their heart. That's all I can say.
Thank you. And Bukky, finally, the last word from Rox herself.
I hope that when people watch Rocks, they see that blackness and joy is synonymous, and that's the real narrative. And I hope when people see this, they can identify and truly believe that stories like this can be on screen and they can do well. Because I see a lot of people saying that the only Black stories that can do well are the ones that are non-stop struggle, or the ones that are just incredibly dramatized or glamorous. But I feel like Black stories that are true, that are mundane, that are just their everyday lives, our brothers and sisters, people can see that and they can be entertained and they can take it in.
Anu, Kosar, Bukky, Theresa, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a great conversation, and we hope to see you all taking over the world, doing great things on camera very soon. So thank you all.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Thanks so much for watching our special Q&A featuring the cast and crew of Rocks. Rocks will be in cinema soon, so do check it out.
Let him serve it.
I could say.
Let him serve the eggs. Come on.
Let me serve the eggs. No!
Yeah, leave him. Come on, you're far too mature for that.
No, you eat your egg. Don't tell me what to do.
You're going to eat or what?
Yeah. Shall we say the Lord's Prayer because we're eating yams?
Okay.
Our Father, He's up in heaven. Hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and give us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen.
Amen.
To the remix.
Amen.
Preacher.
Thank you.